Hello and welcome everybody to this webinar in the name of the European Alliance UFE, Young Universities for the Future of Europe, and UFE and the UFE Bioscience Network, BioYUFE. BioYUFE organizes this webinar series with a number of diverse subjects related to bioscience. Our webinars try to connect people, but also topics from outside of bioscience. So we try to leave the bubble and broaden our perspective.
And what he was doing. Yeah, and we worked on the paper with him.
Somebody is using a microphone. Maybe it's yeah. Okay. So my name is Ute Meyer from the University of Bremen, Germany, Faculty Biology Chemistry. I'm very happy and thankful today to welcome our speakers from Ukraine, Professor Volodymyr Stymenko and Ilya Chynanenko-Jubenko, both at the Department of Ecology and Environmental Technologies, Zhytomyr Polytechnic State University, Ukraine. It is one of the, let's say, it is one of the usual subjects in ecology to study consequences of human impacts on the environment. But may I say that there's hardly any impact as frightening and depressing as the impact of war on a country. The direct effects on people and infrastructure are more than severe. And there are also devastating impacts on the natural environment due to the destruction of landscapes and due to the environmental pollution. Volodymyr and Ilya, you will address these short-term and long-term effects and also focus on resilience, restoration, and recovery of ecosystems. Each talk will be about 50 minutes, right, about this. And there's plenty of time afterwards for the audience to ask questions. Questions are very welcome, either live or in the chat. We do record the webinar and publish it on the UFE YouTube channel. Yeah, may I pass over to you now, Volodymyr?
Yeah. Thank you for presenting me. Thank you. Little detail. Not the professor, associate professor, but anyway, thank you. Yeah, I would like to present the presentation on the impact to the environment and specifically to the forest and challenges in restoration. I will touch a broad range of topics, but I will try just to get the main from each of them to show the impact itself. So first of all, some numbers just for realizing. So we have 1,140th day of a full-scale invasion. I don't know if you use any apps where you have the streak of the days, but if you do, you know how difficult it is to keep such a long trace. But this is what we already have. This is the days under the stress, not only to the people, but also to the nature in all of the ways. But the full range of it's more than 4,065. This is 4,065th day of the war after the annexion of the Crimea, which is the real beginning of the war. And since all the time, we have this strong and huge impact on all of the spheres. Today, I will basically share the main results, mostly focused on the annual review, the second edition. If you want to get deeper into this topic, you can definitely get acquainted with this. This is very important. So I will have the brief intro with the general impact, and there is 0 to none aspects and spheres of ecosystem that are not harmed by the war. The total amount of the harm is now suppressed $60 billion US. But I would say that this is the first challenge in all of this situation, because there is no perfect way of estimating the danger and the harm that the war holds. This is definitely the topic, and this is the opportunity for us to create a system that will include not only the things that we can count numerically now, like for example, when we talk about the harm to the forest, we typically calculate the amount of wood products that we won't sell, but we all well know that it goes far beyond this. It includes ecological services, its habitats, and so on and so forth. So for the current situation, we have about 60 billion US dollars as the damage. But while I'm talking now, the risk estimation is still going on and it will change for sure. Yeah, about the main types of ecosystem destructions. Of course, these are the damage and destructions of trees, forests, and the loss of biodiversity that goes after these. Later on, we'll discuss the forests in more details, why it's so important and so harmful. Then we, of course, have the institutions of rare species, which goes after the loss of biodiversity. We have also the damage to the soil, the danger of mining, and the danger to air quality, water quality, which we will all cover in the next slides. So currently, this is the map of Ukraine with the highlighted regions. There is an amount of million of US dollars of harm caused to the ecology in those regions. As you can see, the main regions that were damaged are Luhansk and Donetsk, of course, for the longest periods of military actions going on there. But we also have Kharkiv region, Kherson region, Cherkasy, Kiev, which are one of the most damaged regions. So now let's talk about different aspects of the ecosystems, and let me start with the fires. Of course, fires are the consequence of military actions, of shelling, of hostiles. As the main tool of the weapon, the bombs and different other explosives are used, the fires are unavoidable effect and the result of that. Currently, we have 18.4 billion US dollars in environmental damage due to the fires. These fires are caused not only by bombing and shelling, but also by the military actions and things that are connected to them, like the stationary staying of the military troops and other actions, burning of oil products, and forests and other plantations. As you can see, the burning of the forest is the biggest part. And now let me give you a brief look into this, why forests are the main victim of the war currently. This is because of the nature of war itself. As military soldiers have to hide somewhere, they have to have the location for their military vehicles, and forest is the best place for it. So it becomes the real victim of the war, as the bombing goes there, as the fires are caused by the oil and by the ammunition that are holding there. That's why it is one of the biggest victims in the sphere of ecosystems. So when we talk about the end of 2024, Russia has already caused 2 trillion hryvnias or $48 billion worth of damage to Ukrainian environment in total. For today, the number is bigger. It's about 60. I told about this. But the more interesting number is here. 3 million hectares of forest are affected by war. This is about 30% of all forests of Ukraine. This includes not only the forests after the fires. This, of course, includes the mechanical damage, the soil destruction, and any type of damage that is caused to the forest. Over the previous years of the war, there were more than 60,000 hectares of forest that are occupied. The problem with this is that forests on the occupied territory are typically cut with no forest management, with no sustainable practices, which causes the huge long-term effect on those territories. Also, about 40% of forest fires in the forest of the state forest agencies of Ukraine are caused by Russian shelling, which is a huge number. So currently, when we will go back to the previous slide, when we saw the number of fires and other plantation, we can say that the minimum 40% of them are caused by the military actions itself. Now let's move on to the further consequences, and we will talk about the biodiversity and changes in biodiversity. And this is the two-side problem. On one hand, we have the threat to the species that are endangered, because the territories that are occupied, including protected areas, including the forests, of course, there will be no specific management for the species that are threatened. And later on, we will look at a few cases of protected areas and some of the devastating results that were there. Currently, about 750 species of plants or fungi are listed in the book of Ukraine, which is the of threatened species, and they are under threat because they are located on occupied territory. About 900 species of animals are also under threat, including some of the endemic species that are located only in Ukraine, including marble, polecat, steep eagle, and others species. But we have another problem, which is the invasive species, because the process of the war, no control on the borders, also created the pressure of incoming of the invasive species. You can see the example of some fungi, like Sporobolus cryptodrus, that came from the territory of Russia. We also have invasive species that got the better conditions for their breeding, and they increased the number so much that now it's a danger, including the mice. I may talk also about some of the aspects that are connected to biodiversity that are even tougher, that include the change in behavior of animals, like the dogs that began to eat flesh, human flesh. That creates another level of danger. And of course, all of these problems are multiplied, and these are the challenges that we have never faced before. Now let's move on to the soil. Of course, soil damage is unavoidable in this case, as the explosives, they all have different chemicals that disrupt natural processes. You can see the examples of the clean soil, damaged soil, and the thing is that damaged soil and their area, which is about 27.5, this 20.8 million square meters that were damaged or contaminated or polluted. The work that is going to be hauled in that direction is also very big, as the extraction of the pollutants, of the contaminators, they take a lot of time if we use the natural rehabilitation or plant-based methods. But if we use some other, like chemical included methods, it takes a lot of money. That is also a current challenge that we have. Now let's move on to the water. So there are many layers of threat to the water resources. Of course, when we talk about open water bodies, rivers, lakes, I think that my colleague Ilya Zubenko will get deeper into the water topic. I will just share that there is not only the problem of pollution of the water, which is huge, of course. We also have the limited access to the drinking water for the people. Yep, I think that Ilya will cover this topic better. Of course, another aspect that could not be damaged is the air quality. Currently, we estimate this like 17.7 billion of USD dollars in damage to the air quality. Not only the forest fires, not only the toxins from the explosives, but also the burning of oil products, causing the most of the damage. We now know, you may hear from time to time that fuel storages are damaged by the drones or destructed, and there is a clear reason for this. This is one of the most effective ways of controlling the enemy logistics. and it will be almost unavoidable that these places, these facilities will be destroyed. But the consequence of this is also the number and amount of greenhouse gases, of contaminated air that's extracted. But even with the regular attacks, I mean, we also have the higher levels of toxins in the air that typically last to up to 2 weeks after the extinguishing of the fire. Mainly including chlorine and hydrochloric acid as the elements. But of course, we understand that depending on the type of the munition and depending on the type of the attack, of the object that was attacked, numbers can change rapidly. Of course, the core of the nature protected areas are under threat. For this current period of the war, 25 objects of protected areas of Ukraine got under the Russian occupied control. And definitely there are consequences of this, as the hunting of the animals on these territories by the soldiers, not doing any nature reserve management that should be done, neglecting the main rules and the activities that were held in this territory before, which led to another financial and ecological damage. Currently, it's estimated like 15.2 billion USD dollars to reserves. Mainly, the main part of this is destruction and damage of species of flora and fauna listed in the Red Book of Ukraine. But the question is it really possible to estimate the damage to endangered species? Or maybe we don't know now currently, maybe we'll get some species got extinct, totally destroyed, died out. How can this be estimated in money? Yeah. So, but this is one of the main sources of damage: fires and forests and plantations. And later on, I will show you some of the most destructive effects on the nature reserve territories. That's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna slowly move to the case studies of the worst environmental impact. I chose only 3 cases that were interesting, and I think they are worth sharing with you, but there are much more. And I highly recommend you, if you are interested into this topic, take a look at the review of the annual review. So maybe you have heard about Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant that was exploded by the Russians, that caused to one of the biggest ecological catastrophes on the territory of Ukraine for the whole history, and of course the biggest catastrophe for the war period. With the sudden surge of water rushing downstream, habitats were irreparably damaged, and numerous species, including some already endangered, were left stranded or drowned. Waste, oil products, mines were swamped downstream, contaminating water sources, farmlands, resulting in ecological danger and catastrophe. Let's take a look at some of the results, some of the consequences of that. Of course, the main results are the drop in groundwater level, increasing salinity of land and groundwater, water pollution, drop in the level of oxygen in the water, active algae blooms, almost complete death of fish in the reservoir, temporary desalination of water in Black Sea, which you can see here, yeah, with the value for the date after the catastrophe of 4, with normal level of about 17 or 18. Soil degradation and uncontrolled spread of mines. Not only this, but there were some facilities, about 54 facilities that could be source of contamination, were flooded. That they included pharmaceutical industry, chemistry industry, sewage treatment plants, and so on, so on. And so this contamination, it spread all over the territory downstream. And of course, it had consequences. And one of another big influence was the lack of access to the drinking water for the local period, which lasted for some weeks. I'm not sure about the situation right now, but it definitely got worse, and it affected all aspects. Now, a few words about Ascania Nova. So, Ascania Nova is one of the biggest nature reserves in Ukraine. It's famous because it's located on steep territory. It has some unique species for Ukraine. You can see some examples that were documented of the animals that were killed. About 150 saigas, about 28 Achilles birds, 4 Kefir buffaloes, 1 takin, 1 yak. And so these are the cases that were somehow filmed. We have no clue what is the real number of the danger, what is the real number of animals that were killed, because it's a pretty common practice where soldiers occupy the new territory and they do some hunting, let's say so, and they do not distinguish the territories which is nature protected or not nature protected. Yeah, this is not the point of military actions. That's why it's a huge danger. So yeah, about 1.5 million USD dollars is the damage to the reserve caused by the war in general. There were about 69 fires occurred during the full-scale war on that territory, with the 7,000 hectares, more than 7,000 hectares that burned down. And that this steep territory, the territory of Ascania Nova, it has a distinguished features of this steppe plantation, which is unfortunately is pretty rare in this endemic form, in this natural form, which of course was damaged. And now one of the cases that's just the pinnacle, the top of the destruction. It's the Ivory Coast of Svetoslav National Nature Park. So it is burned down almost completely. About 96% of the national park land is burned. But not only the fires themselves, but also the landmines, the construction of the fortification, the damage from heavy machinery, all this affected this territory. And what we will have to face in the future, yeah, that's not only fighting the consequences of the fire, but also the habitat recovery and demining of this territory, which is a huge amount of work we should do, definitely. But this is the example of the protected area that was totally destroyed. A bit more about mine threat. There is a huge number of military tools that bring the danger of explosive materials. I will not stop here because I think I'm pretty limited in time. So only a few important things. So about important numbers. About 75% of accidents with civilians on the deoccupied territories were caused by mines. Later on, when I show you the territory that is mined and that it's needed to be checked, you will see which is the potential number of threat, which is the potential amount of threat that we face. And of course, this mining problem, it interrupts not only the human but animals as well, because different types of explosive materials react on different weight. It's one of the main features, and there are some of them that react even on small mammals. Like, look at this. There is the mine PMN4, and it triggers at 5 kilos. So typically some rabbits, big rabbits hair can be the trigger for this. There are smaller mines that even hedgehog can trigger. There are mines that are based in water and that can be triggered by fish. Not talking about the chemical contamination and pollution, about the danger of explosives itself. Yeah, there is the picture, yeah. Przewalski horse hit by the mine in the Chernobyl Biosphere Reserve. I will just remind you that Przewalski horse is a unique species that got widespread in Chernobyl Biosphere Reserve due to the limitations of human activity. And this is definitely, and the population was rising. It was a pretty promising thing for our region. Due to the military actions, it's also got under danger. And now about the scales of all this thing. I will start already with the main numbers. we have about 30% of Ukraine territory that is mined. By mined, it's meant not only that are really proved, but some of this territory has the danger of mines being located there. For comparison, it's the territory of 2 Azerbaijans, 2 Czech republics, or 4 Switzerland. Imagine the whole country being mined or unchecked, and now imagine 4 countries being mined. There are many layers of mining problems because the mining in fields, it's one topic, but the mining in forests, it's totally different thing, with almost no specific tools for detecting the mines without human involvement. A huge risk to the local animals, huge risk of being not found. It's another sphere that should be totally be researched and developed. With the current territory of 460,000 hectares, about only 900 were demined, diffused. Yeah, partly by the State Emergency Service, partly by its units. A few words just about the fact that the military consequences, the war consequences, they are not limited by the borders of the country. Of course, they have much bigger scale. The air pollution has no borders. The water quality also has no borders because it touches the Black Sea or other water bodies. The underground water may be polluted. The total input into the global warming done by this, by the CO2 emission and additional contributing, that will definitely is an additional contributor to climate change. Sea pollution that I told you, and some water mines may be also danger. And here is some statistics from the UAVs, drones, and missiles that also hit the territory of Europe. So that's one more time reminds about the danger that even though currently it's limited by the territory of Ukraine, in general, the consequences and the influence goes far beyond this. Not to finish on such a sad point, I would say that, but maybe despite this nightmare and this disastrous consequences, it may be a little window of opportunities for the future, as the build back better is the principle that our ministry taken into consideration with the approach to the green rebuilding of the country. So we will try to rebuild the infrastructure, including the sustainability elements and the elements of ecological sources of energy. There is also the picture. Sorry, I didn't name it. This is the territory down the stream from the hydro Kakhovka, HPP, what I mentioned before. And now it has the unique plantation of the forest, which is not typical for Ukraine. There are also some regions that were under military actions. Currently, they have no use, and there is a high chance that they will be transformed into nature protected areas. So even though we face one of the biggest ecological problems that maybe modern society has faced, I still believe that after the end of it, we will do our best to transform into something better. And that's why we would definitely need some help, and because we have a lot of motivation on our own. Thank you for listening, and I will be happy to answer some of your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vladimir, for these disturbing insights, and also for the openness and the sort of addressing that there might be build back a better future. We hope this for Ukraine. And I would, before we ask any questions, I would like to pass over to you, Ilya, to your part for more insights. Mm-hmm. Ilya?
Okay, I'm here. Just a moment. Do you see my presentation?
No, not the presentation. Yes, here it is now. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
my name is Ilya Tsiganenko-Dzibenko. I'm a PhD now, months ago, Associate Professor of Earth Sciences Department, and also a biology teacher at the separate subdivision Scientific Lyceum. I changed my previous primary topic for today for more general. It will be transformation of hydro ecosystems under military impact, heavy metal contamination, and adaptive resilience mechanisms of higher aquatic plants. Take a look at this slide. Here I'm showing the traditional sources of heavy metal pollution that everyone is used to considering: industry, agricultural activity, waste disposal, volcanic eruptions, but I noticed that big red only in the middle. It's not just a word, it's the key question of my presentation. Are we really accounting for all sources? What about military operations? Almost nobody talks about this, but today I'll explain how combat activities become a critical factor in heavy metal contamination of our water bodies. Now take a look at this map. It shows current military conflicts around the world. See how many there are: Ukraine, Russia, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Sudan. Each of these hotspots represents not only a humanitarian crisis, but also an ecological disaster for water resources. Notice that the right side of the slide where conflicts are categorized by type: civil wars, interstate conflicts, political instability, and even transnational terrorism. All these military activities leave an invisible footprint in the form of heavy metals that enter the soil and then water systems. And this very aspect, the impact of military operations on water ecosystem contamination, remains insufficiently studied. Here, what's particularly interesting, look at these two maps. On the left, we have research from the European Commission Joint Research Center showing the probability of hydropolitic conflicts worldwide. Darker colors indicate higher risk. On the right, you can see the Pacific Institute water conflict chronology with red marking active water resources conflicts. Do you notice the overlap? It's crucially in these regions where water issues intersect with political instability that we observe the most critical contamination of water bodies with heavy metals due to military operations. This is not a coincidence. It's a systematic problem that we need to study and address at an international level. And what about impact of military operations on water bodies of Ukraine? In addition to destroy cities and the lives lost, aggressors unrelenting shelling causes serious damage to the environment of the country. Explosions, fires, bombings, destructions of industrial facilities and services systems lead to air and water pollution, destruction of forests and unique ecosystems. At the moment, a large part of reservoirs within the borders or southeastern Ukraine is partially or completely under occupation. This fact complicates the assessment of the impact of military actions on mentioned water bodies. In general, about 22% of all water bodies in Ukraine are occupied. At the moment, water bodies located near the front line suffered the most from hostile actions of Russian army, in particular Kharkiv, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk, or Dnipro now, Mykolaiv and Kherson regions. Difficult ecological situation is observed along the entire coast of the Sea of Azov. The Black Sea also suffers significantly from the actions. The land reclamation systems of southern Ukraine is under occupation and unable to meet the needs of the population and industry in this region. About 37% of the total area of land reclamation system within southeastern Ukraine is under occupation at the moment. Damage to public utilities leads to contamination of water with organic substances. In particular, at the moment, 1,384 cases of damage to water treatment communications have been recorded since the beginning of hostilities. At the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, the Russians damaged high voltage lines that are supposed to supply electricity there, including for cooling, use nuclear fuel and local storage facilities. Due to the lack of electricity, the temperature in the holding pools rises, potentially leading to the release of radioactive substances into the environment. The radiation could be carried by the wind to other regions of Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and Europe. Among the most serious threats of contamination water bodies in Mariupol are corpses, destroyed sewage pumping system, flooded household waste. Another case is, in addition to natural hazards, there is now a risk of Russian mines, aerial bombs, rockets, shells, or weapons that the Russian army deliberate left in water bodies. Russian forces have attacked port infrastructure along the Black and Azov Sea coast and ships choices leading to water pollution and the spread of toxic substances into the sea. Metal projectile fragments that enter the environment are also not safe and completely inert. And now I want to show you the specific location of our research, of my research, the Mushunka River Basin in Mushun village, Bucha district, Kiev region. These territories experienced intensive combat operation in 2022. On the slide, you can see satellite images and maps of the study area. The red zones indicate areas of active fighting and occupied zone also, while blue lines represent water bodies. In the bottom right corner, there is a detailed legend showing sampling points and various types of contamination. We paid special attention to areas where military equipment was destroyed near water bodies, leading to significant heavy metal pollution. The photographs on the right show the current state of the water bodies where we conducted our research. These photos are my own images from Mushun village in the Kiev region, where the research was conducted. In the top row, you can see the remains of military equipment and the damaged bridge over the Mushunka River or Pin River. These objects became sources of intensive heavy metal contamination. The middle row shows destroyed buildings and trees with shrapnel, which also releases toxic elements during corrosion. Also, Mushun was in the area affected by elements of phosphorus ammunitions. And on the first stage, the aim was to analyze the dynamics of heavy metal compounds allocation in urboid hydrotopes of Kiev region in post-military conditions. Qualitative analysis of water samples was carried out in July 2022, and a year later, in July 2023, from fisheries and recreational water bodies affected by the hostile. It's in village of Moshun, Bucha district, Kyiv region. And short conclusions that in 2022-2023, the presence of 4 heavy metals was detected in the water environment of both lakes in the study area. It's worth noting that an annual increase in content of ferrum compounds was recorded in the water of both reservoirs, but comparing 2 years data, the heavy metal content of the sediments in Fishery Lake indicates a significant increase. The downward trend in the content of heavy metal compounds can be traced in all the studied indicators of the recreational lake. Comparison of the data on the presence of heavy metals in the bottom sediments shows a significant increase in the content of essential heavy metals. In the bottom sediments of the Fishery Lake, recreational lake, may be subject to regular monitoring and cleaning because it is used for human recreation. On the opposite side, fishing ponds may not receive such regular attention. And what about mercury? Mercury represents a particularly problematic xenobiotic due to its exceptional toxicity and bioaccumulation potential. The use of mercury in military ammunitions, include explosive devices and artillery components, is widely documented. Upon detonation, these materials realize mercury compounds into various environmental components, initiating complex biogeochemical cycling processes. Aquatic ecosystem demonstrate particular vulnerability to mercury contamination due to enhanced bioaccumulation and biomagnification phenomena within aquatic food webs. Macrophytes as primary producers and ecosystem engineers play a key role in aquatic biogeochemistry and community structure. However, the ecotoxicological effects of mercury on these critically important ecosystems components remain insufficiently characterized. This study utilizes a comprehensive analytical approach, integrating field surveys and laboratory experiments. The methodology encompasses geobotanical field studies using route expeditionary methods and chemical analytical methods, including very big amount of this. To select the most representative plant test object for further toxicological experiments, field studies were conducted in post-military territories. Research materials consist of geobotanical descriptions performed according to the general accepted method on the water bodies of Moshun village, Kyiv region in 2022-2023. Based on the results of study conducted in the post-military territory of the Bucha district, Kyiv region within the Moshunka River Basin, the association Diphetum angustifolia belongs in the Phragmitivon alliance, Phragmititalia order, and Phragmitimagnoricetaria class was identified. Phytocenological analysis relieved the predominance of Tifolatifolia at the studied post-military location. The dominance of this helophytic macrophyte indicates the presence of nutrient-rich hypertrophic conditions in the riparian ecotones of the Moshunka River. To assess the absorption capacity of Tifolatifolium lemna minor, a solution of mercury salt was prepared. The study was conducted over a 5-day period under natural lighting conditions as a temperature of plus 24-25 degrees by Celsius. Short conclusions. Our study looked at what happens to water plants when they are exposed to mercury pollution in areas where military activity has taken place. Here, what I found, different plants absorb mercury at different rates. Duckweed or lemna minor collected over 30% more mercury than cattails or tifolia. As mercury levels increase from low to high concentrations, plants showed the increase in signs of damage. The plant's ability to photosynthesize was particularly affected by mercury exposure. Plants exposed to mercury showed visibility changes, including much smaller roots and stems. Our findings help identify which plants could be used for cleaning up mercury pollution in the more affected water environments. And the study provides particular practical guidelines for monitoring and restoring water ecosystem damaged by military activities. And also we have another two final results about this topic on October 2024 at the International Innovation Show Vinova in Zagreb, Croatia. Our graduate Anastasia Vlasova won a silver medal for her research the impact of urbanization and military actions on the hydrochemical potential of small rivers. I was as her biology teacher and scientific supervisor. Anastasia won second place also at the all-Ukrainian stage of the Junior Academy of Science competition in the section of hydrology with the same research. And for me, the next part, my final result, I have completed PhD dissertation on transformation of homeostasis and antiostasis indicators of hydroecosystems under military impact conditions, case study of the Mashunka River Basin. And that's all. I'm waiting for your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much also to you, Elia, for this comprehensive presentation. It's hard to say after such it's hard to say after such talks. Thank you for your interesting talks. It's obviously that our audiences feel the concern, and also it's a little difficult now to ask some questions, but does anybody have questions or comments also from the audience? I would like to ask you a question on I mean, what we could see from also your talk, Volodymyr, is that despite of we have the feeling that the whole Ukrainian state is sort of working to where in this war is still a functioning state. There's a lot of data collected here. How is this network functioning? I mean, to collect this data, and is your institute part of this?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for this question. Little just comment, yeah, because I presented similar presentations a few times before, and sometimes the audience are afraid or feel uncomfortable asking questions, but please feel free. You're just very, we are open to ask the question. Thank you for the question. So these annual reviews, I believe it's a really good work. It's based on the cooperation of three branches, which is government, Ministry of Ecology and the Ministry of Ecology, let's call it so. The studies are done by the number of experts and the administration of the nature reserves. There is also the part of the business in here, which I will cover later, and also the representatives of the military. So how this works, there is a business investor, which is in this case, it's DTEC and the number of other countries. DTEC is an energy company. And this company is now transforming into greener company. So I am no one to judge here, neither good nor bad, but the good thing about this, they collect the money for further studies. And I would say it's the collection of the studies. So the people who are responsible for these reviews, they collect the number of studies, they refer to the people who are doing the studies, asking extra questions and collecting this into one thing. Currently, we were not involved into this review, but there is a number of other studies that are done, and our university is currently involved into some aspects. Talking about me, I'm more into the consequences for the forest, for the monitoring issues of this process, both the on-site, which is a huge problem, and the remote sensing monitoring of this question. So we are currently moving into that direction. I would also add that the versions of this year and the last year, they are different because different people were working on these reviews. So, but definitely the document worth looking at if you are interested in this.
Yeah, there's a question on the chat. First of all, Lilian says many thanks for these illuminating papers. I think that is, all of us echo that. And then there's a question from Alexander, who asked, do we know what happened to the surviving animals in Ascania nova and how many there were?
So the information is pretty disturbed because so there is a new administration, as I know, for most of the big nature protected areas. For the small ones, they just do not disappear. They disappear, but for the big one, they do create the new administration. But the question is, can we believe the data they provide? No, sure. This is the last thing you should do, believe into Russian propaganda. So the information about this hunting illegal and other crimes that were filmed by the soldiers on that territories, they were filmed and they were then uploaded somewhere. So there is a number of structures, NGOs, whose work is to collect the data about such crimes. They divide them into categories, they collect, they archive it for the future, we hope, processes. So there may be some information, but we cannot trust it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Volodymyr. Another question from Nina, who asked, you said that 96% of the forest reserve burned down. How is the current state of them? Are they recovering and displaying a grassland-like scenery, like you showed in one picture? So what's happening then over the seasons? Is there a succession now happening?
Of course, the succession will take place, but we will see this year. Maybe if there is a need, I can share the video, which also was in the materials of that review, which showed the dynamic of the fires. It burned down not into one set. There was a number of fires throughout the years, and the total this damage was finalized only last year. So we're gonna see this year. No information, and there will be no possibility to explore this on site, only GIS. There will be. So the peculiarities and the features that may be on the territories may include the influence of the landscape damage that was done, the damage also to the soil and the contamination of different oil products and so on. There will be some changes, but there won't be unique. I think that will be just a little bit not healthy. But we'll see. That have no data now.
Good, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, so are there any further questions? Ute, did you have any further questions, or anybody else from the audience? You want to raise your hand or put something to the chat?
Yeah, I would rather like to ask, there's another in the chat. Let's take this first. Thank you for the webinar, says Christina, very interesting. Are there any early indicators of ecosystem recovery or continued degradation in the Dnipro River and Black Sea regions post-flooding?
I suppose my colleague will take this question.
Are there any early indicators of ecosystem recovery, or is this continued degradation in the with Dnipro River and the Black Sea regions after post flooding? Christina, maybe you can maybe would you ask your questions directly? Christine, are you here? Still here?
Hi there.
Yeah, would you?
So it's mostly just looking if there's any early indicators of ecosystem recovery within sort of marine environments in general, along the coastline and any of the freshwater bodies.
Okay, I will try to give you an answer. I think that the most, for me, informational indicators of this of different states is macrophytes or higher aquatic plants. If you will analyze a structure, it can give you an information about how this ecosystem recovery from the first point. Vladimir, maybe you can help me.
Yeah, of course. So as Ilya said, there is a clear indicator of this, and this is microphytes. But to analyze the recovery process, we need to have the specific data, which is not always available due to the danger of this territory. And yep, the Black Sea, as far as I know, Ilya may correct me, but it doesn't show the symptoms of recovering. I don't think so, but yeah. So talking about specific cases, need to check this out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the war is still ongoing. There are numerous dangers here now. So, I mean, it's still astonishing and surprising how much data you can collect and just document the impacts. And your studies make very clear how important this is to document, although I think it's a very sad and exhausting work also to deal with this. And yeah, we wish you all the motivation for it to keep on going. And of course, we hope that very soon you can study Ukraine recovery after the war. Now time has run out, and I would like to have a short, very short glance into our upcoming seminar. Just a second, which is on 3rd of June on the topic of green exercise and mental health by Nick Bradshaw and Luca Malatesti from University of Rijeka and Nick Hopper and Dr. Joe Barton, both University of Essex. This seminar will moderated again by my colleague Michael, and we would be happy to welcome you. And also, thank you very much to our speakers and guests from Ukraine, and we hope we keep in touch. Come to our seminars, join BioYUFE, and thank you very, very much for these insights and of presenting and bringing us close to what we only get from the media. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If I have just half a minute, I would thank you for such a possibility, because this is our task to inform. There is no way people will get this information in such an amount or quality. So we're very thankful for this chance. Thank you for having us. Thank you for taking your time and listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you.